Welcome to Journaling with Nature, the podcast for those who want to turn curiosity into wonder, a pencil sketch into a rabbit hole of discovery, a moment of stillness into a life full of joy. I'm your host, Bethan Burton. Let's open the pages of our nature journals and explore this world together. Hello, this is episode 118. Here again with another interview episode, and this time I'm in conversation with Kathryn Gander. Kathryn is a nature journaler and illustrator from County Durham in England. I adore Kathryn's journal pages, which are filled with stories and colour and life. We spoke about lots of topics, including the changes that Kathryn has seen in her local landscape over the years, her practice of creating what she calls drawn walks, and her nature journal as a place of both solace and joy. Let's listen. Kathryn, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I'm very much looking forward to our chat.
Hello, Bethan. It's lovely to meet you. I've heard so much about your nature journaling adventures, so it's really nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't wait to hear about your nature journaling adventures. So I always begin at the beginning, and I'd love for you to tell me some stories about nature in your early life. And I wonder what kind of landscapes and nature experiences you had when you were young.
Well, I grew up in the northwest of England, and it's quite it was a very much an urban area. On the outskirts of Manchester. But my family my parents just loved walking. So we did lots and lots of walking holidays, particularly into North Wales and up into Scotland. And then when we were older, we were lucky to be able to go abroad to Austria and France and places like that, camping holidays and that sort of thing. So I did have quite a lot of contact with nature, and my mother has always been keen on botany. So from quite young, I was kind of taught the names of a lot of the wildflowers, not the Latin names, but the common names. And I think that's really put me in good stead and helped me on my nature journal journey, really.
Yeah.
And something that I've just taken for granted until recently, when you realise that how few people do grow up with that and are lucky enough to have that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those key people in our lives, the ones who quietly take us outside and show us things that we can wonder at as children, those are the people who instill something in us that we carry forward. And it sounds like your mum was that for you.
Yes, that's right. That's very true. Yes.
And so tell me about nature around you where you are now. What does your landscape look like? I think that you have lived in your place for a long period of time, so you must have gotten to know that area. Tell me about that.
Yes. Well, I have lived on the edge of London, and I could not wait to get away back up to the north. And I've also lived in a few other places, but we've been here for, I think, about 32 years now.
Wow.
In County Durham. And I think I've seen some changes over the time that I've been here. It's a kind of post-industrial county in many ways, because it's got a very strong background in coal mining. So the east of the county, there are lots of mining villages that are now no longer mining villages because that has declined. And then over in the west of the county, it's a lot more rural, I would say. But there is still a lot of industrial archaeology from the sort of older mining that went on for metals and that sort of thing. So it's kind of, I would describe it as a bit of a scarred landscape, where our house is, we live in an old mining terrace, and around us there are fields, and it's all been open cast, or not all of it, but a lot of it has been open cast, and so the landscape is different to how it was. It doesn't feel like a very old landscape, although there are lots of indicators. But having said that, I think since I moved here, I feel that the place has kind of greened up, and it sort of feels as though it's healing a bit. And talking to friends who I go out walking with and observing nature with, I think they often feel the same. So that's nice.
Wow. And so what sorts of things have you noticed? Is it more birds arriving? Is it, what indicators make you feel this way, that it's starting to heal?
I think the thing that's been most noticeable where we live is that when we first came here, we never heard curlews. And now every spring we hear the curlews come. So that's really nice. I'm hoping that it's not a sign that they're coming from somewhere else where they are escaping from because things are not right for them. But they're there, so that's good to know. And then just the whole kind of greening up of the landscape, places where before there was quite a lot of spoil heaps and things like that. And actually some of those sites are quite important for specific kinds of wildlife, plants particularly, that grow on places where there were old mining minerals and there's a lot of metallic content in the soil. I'm not an expert on it, but I have kind of come across information about that at times. So yes, so it's nice to know that those are there.
I'm really fascinated by the way nature regenerates, and especially those sites where there's been some sort of industry or some sort of damage, and then this healing that nature can do is quite amazing. And also that watching what comes back first and what happens next and the story that unfolds in that healing is quite fascinating. I really like that you're seeing that around where you are, and the curlew sounds like a wonderful indicator.
Yes. And we have hares who live on the hill near where we live, so it's nice to see them. But we don't see an awful lot of wildlife really, in terms of mammals and things, but it's there, you just don't see it that often.
Yeah. And you mentioned springtime. It's gotten me thinking about the seasons where you are. Sometimes in your journal pages, I see that you're talking about drawing out in the cold or drawing in different seasons. I'm wondering about the seasonality of your experiences out in nature and what the seasons are like for you there in County Durham.
I think it is a place where the seasons are quite strongly felt, I would say. Although sometimes we have summers that are maybe a bit disappointing in terms of not very warm. And when we do get the warm weather, we really enjoy it.
Yes.
But I love autumn. Every season that comes round is always welcome, I think. Sometimes the winters can feel a bit long, especially sort of January, February time.
Towards the end.
Yes, towards the end. And we're just beginning to see, the signs of springs. We've got snowdrops and crocuses coming through. And buds are just beginning to unfurl and so on. So that's always welcome. Yeah.
Would you say that being a nature observer, being a nature journaler has made you more attuned to the seasons, or this idea that each, like you said, it's a beautiful way you said it, each season is welcome. And I think as nature journalers, we have this readiness to be excited about what's coming, and maybe that helps us be excited about the next thing, the next season, and what's going to happen next in this part of the year. Do you feel that that's enhanced your attention to seasons and your enjoyment of the passing of the year?
I do, without a doubt. I think it's made it just made me notice things so much more.
Yeah.
And even when I go out walking with my husband, I think because of the nature journaling, we pay more attention to things, and just slowing down a bit more. And it's partly to do with getting older, but also, just feeling like you can relax and take your time on a walk. Whereas when we were younger, we were always sort of seeing how many miles we could do, and how high a mountain we could get up, and all that sort of thing. And it was more about achievement. Whereas now it's more, it's a much kind of more gentle approach most of the time.
Tell me about art and your connection with art through your life. When did you start making art, or did you just continue all the way from childhood until now?
Well, when I was at school, I really enjoyed art, and I was quite keen to carry on and do it once I left. But I was sort of discouraged, I think. I think it was seen as a bit of a risky career.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have possibly ended up doing the same. I'm a retired teacher. So I think possibly I would have ended up teaching anyway, had I done art, unless, because I don't think, I haven't got the kind of talent that's going to take you to the top and earn lots of money. But and I think perhaps in those days, you just didn't know about the opportunities that might be available. We had, sort of quite limited guidance. So I ended up teaching, and I've kind of used my art in my teaching quite a lot, because I worked with hearing impaired children. So being able to draw was really useful, because, I was able to explain things quite well through drawings and diagrams and things like that. But I have always done sketching, drawing, and sort of messing about, really. And then eventually, when I retired, I decided that it was something that I would sort of focus on and commit myself to, really.
And it brings so much joy, doesn't it? The creative process, in whatever form it takes. It could be a profession, but it could just be, like you say, just playing, just experimenting. And it seems to me like experimenting with art techniques is part of your practice. Would you say that? Would you say that's right?
Yes, I would. And I mean, if you could see where I'm sitting, I'm surrounded by a lot of stuff, and it can get out of hand. and the nature journaling has really, it's been good for me, because I've been able to narrow things down and try and get so that I'm not using so many tools and materials and things like that, because it was beginning to get a bit overwhelming.
How did you decide what you wanted to learn and play with? Was it just intuitive? Did you just follow inspiration where it led you? How did that play out?
Well, before when I left teaching, I decided to take up an MA in design, even though I hadn't got any background in design or in art. But they let me go on the course, which was great. And it gave me something to focus on when I retired. So I was then kind of at sea, really, because I hadn't decided what route I was going to go down. But by then I was already doing a little bit of nature journaling. I'd sort of started that in about 2019, which was the year I started my degree. So I was just all over the place, trying lots of different things out. But the nature journaling was really an anchor. And because I'd already started that process, I was able to carry on. And that sort of, although it wasn't the end product of my course, I did it over 2 years. We had the pandemic, after 6 months into the course, that started. So we had lockdown, and a lot of the things that I could have done, I could no longer do. I've had thought that I might go down a route to do printing, but I've got no studio at home. I didn't really have the materials. So I ended up doing much more journaling and using the journaling as a route to producing kind of my end product, as it were. Which was, I did a storybook for children.
Oh, wow.
And I also did some animation work with kind of cartoon things, because I think at heart I'm a cartoonist, quite sort of sort of scribbly little drawings that I like to do. So.
You had this one post that intrigued me, and it was an animation, and you asked the question, do cartoon eyes attract people to the message, or to connect with these creatures, which were bees, I think. Do you remember that post?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I do, yes.
And we were talking about anthropomorphism and whether this helps us make a connection. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on that.
Yes. Well, I was really torn, because I just wanted to put these boggly eyes on to give them a bit of character.
Yeah.
But part of me felt that it might be perceived as as you say, anthropomorphism, and sort of denigrate the subject matter in a way. So I got a lot of varying feedback. Some people loved it and thought that it would attract sort of interest from people who might not otherwise be very bothered about bees and wasps and whatnot. So yeah, and in the end I thought, well, I had to make a decision, so I just went for it and went down the cartoon route.
They were adorable.
Thank you. I mean, it was partly swayed by the fact that I was stuck at home, and I needed to learn how to use the digital stuff that I had. So it was all part of that learning process as well.
Was the digital art part of your learning process for your studies?
It was, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I did some animations, and it took absolutely ages. It's really, really time consuming. I spent hours and hours in front of the computer.
The animations are so cute. One of them is like an ant. Oh, could you talk about the ant one? It's so sweet. It's like ants going home.
Yes, I think that was one of the first ones I did.
Okay.
And then, yes, I did one about red mason bees. And it led me to meeting people who actually had some specialist knowledge, because it's so easy to get it all wrong. You really need to. I wanted to make sure that I had my facts right.
Oh, you mean the actual information that you're presenting, not the digital skills?
Yes, the content. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
So you must have learnt a lot along the way about invertebrates.
I did, yes. And I kind of stumbled across a group locally, a very small group of real experts who are part. Well, it started off with a project with it's called the AONB North Pennines Group. AONB stands for Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's not a national park, but it's a designation of kind of semi-protected areas. And so they'd identified some sites where there were lots of interesting, sort of more prolific, perhaps, insect life. And so they were monitoring these over time. And I joined that group, and they were very welcoming, even though I had virtually no knowledge at all. And I kind of thought that I would just go out, naively thought that I would go out with my nature book and stand around and draw what they saw and, sort of include it. But it's such a specialised area, and, it takes absolutely years and years to build up the kind of knowledge that you need to identify the invertebrates correctly. And there's all the Latin names to learn. So I have learnt some of them, and it's just been so interesting and just very rewarding, just going along and being part of sort of starting to build up that knowledge. I take a lot of photographs now, and sometimes I use them in my artwork, but actually I've found, even though that was the focus of what I was doing, they are one of the hardest things to draw.
Yes. All legs and wings and
yes, and to get them to look right. Which was partly why I did it digitally, because it was easier to draw them digitally than it was to do them on paper.
Mm-hmm. Because you can correct, because you can undo everything. Is that why it was easier?
Yes, it's much more forgiving, and it just has a different look to it. It's a different feel to it. Yeah.
So you talked about coming to nature journaling and how that helped you, organize your thoughts about your project for your studies. I'm wondering how you came to nature journaling. What was the first point of contact, or was it something you were already doing and then found that there's a community around it?
Yes, I'm thinking back. I kind of stumbled across it by accident. I was already starting to do like a travel journal, but only when I was on holiday. I would do little cartoons and little maps of where we'd done our walks and that sort of thing. So I was sort of going along a journaling kind of path. And then somehow, I think I must have been looking for something to do with John Laws, the naturalist. And through that, I came across the Nature Journal Club Facebook page that John, I think it was John Muir, who was the
You were looking for
naturalist.
John Muir, and you came across John Muir Laws?
I was looking for John Muir, and I came across John Muir Laws, yes. And it was just like this door opened up, and there were all these people out there, not as many as there are now, because I think it was in quite early days.
It's grown a lot recently, hasn't it? Since COVID, it's exploded.
Yes. And it was just so lovely to see what people were doing. And suddenly there was this structure that you could use, and just keeping stuff in a book. I mean, it's so obvious to keep a journal and put it all in one place instead of having lots of random bits of paper scattered around the house.
Yes, there's something really wonderful about holding your story in your hands that way and being able to turn the pages and read the history of your explorations, isn't there?
Yes, it's just been really rewarding to just, even though sometimes the artwork isn't that great, it's still a record of that time when
absolutely
a particular experience.
So in your Instagram bio, you write solace in sketchbooks, joy in journaling, and this, I just love this, and I'd love for you to talk about the solace and the joy that you find in this practice.
Yes, it's I think I came up with that during the pandemic, really, because there was so much isolation. I'm kind of quite a solitary person anyway. I'm quite happy with my own company. So although it was such a strange time, it was quite good for me to be able to go out and just take my sketchbook and feel like I was doing something useful. Instead of hiding in the house. And I was also then able to share that with my mother, who we were supporting. My mother's quite elderly. So it was kind of a bit of a route to connect with other people as well as partly fulfilling what I needed to do for my course. In some ways, it was a bit of a distraction because I would do that rather than get on with the work that I needed to do. But it helped to build up a habit that I think I like to think that it will stay with me. And I mean, there have been some difficult times, and it has really felt like it's a bit of an anchor at times when you've just got something that takes you out of yourself.
Yes.
Quite meditative, and you can just focus on what you're doing in a sort of quiet environment. So yes, it has been very rewarding.
Solace and joy are two very important things, and to find them in art and nature is a special thing. You have this amazing thing that you wrote about in a blog post for International Nature Journaling Week, and it's the concept of drawn walks. So you've talked about how hiking and rambling are really important for you and have been all the way back since childhood, but to put your walk on a page is just another joyful expression of your adventure, of your experience. And I'd love for you to talk about this beautiful concept and how you go about creating a page of a drawn walk.
Right. Well, it's often a bit random because it depends whether we're in a place that's kind of conducive to that. But I've always liked maps. I'm quite a map person, and I like to know where I am, and I think I've got a reasonable kind of spatial awareness, so that probably helps. And my husband is interested in maps as well, and he's interested in kind of archaeological sort of history and that sort of thing. So when we're out together, we're kind of observing not just the nature, but sometimes it's to do with the industrial archaeology of the area and that sort of thing. So it's quite nice to put those in the map. So more often than not, I will maybe look at the OS map, the Ordnance Survey map. We've got great maps of around where we live, as a reference, and just do a really rough pencil version, and then kind of try and fit in things that we've seen on the way onto the edges of the map, not necessarily exactly where it is, but it's really just a reminder of what there was and where it was on that journey. It would be quite nice to sort of extend that idea and do something a little bit more polished and finished, but one day maybe.
And you don't seem to have any fear of putting people, yourself or others that you've had these adventures with, on your page. Some people, myself included, have deathly fear of putting people on the page. But you include these joyful pictures of people doing things and just people showing what's been happening in your day on these drawn maps, but on other pages as well. Tell me about drawing people on your page. Is this something you've always been comfortable with?
Well, I think I've always drawn little cartoon people. Even going back to sort of teenage and beyond, postcards we would send with little kind of caricatures of what we were doing when we were on holiday and that sort of thing. So perhaps it stems from that. And then once I was a bit older and was still doing a bit of art as a hobby, I did life drawing classes. So perhaps that's given me the more confidence in drawing people. And so yes, I think I just like drawing people.
I have done life drawing classes for many years, but for some reason I just freeze up when I go to put a person on my journal page. I don't know why. It's a funny thing. Actually, I was just looking up videos the other day of drawing people in watercolor. You know those really traditional watercolorists who have just these lovely figures with a shadow, and they indicate the figures with just some darks and lights and a shadow. And I was looking up lots of these videos on YouTube because in fact, you inspired me, because when I was researching for our chat, I saw how freely and happily you put people down on the page, and I thought I need to overcome my nervousness about this subject.
I think it also depends who the people are and whether they're going to see it. Particularly if they're kind of little, not exactly caricatures, because you don't want to offend anybody, do you? But last year I was doing some kind of voluntary sessions at a local environmental place, and there were a group of us, and I decided to journal what we'd done. They were sort of outdoor activities like making a stool, doing a little bit of simple woodworking and that sort of thing. And I sort of asked people whether they would mind if I did some little drawings of them. And then we just shared them through email. And everybody, I got so many nice comments back that I pursued that. And by the end of the year, I had enough pictures to put together to make a little calendar for the project.
That's amazing.
So we had some printed off, and that's been just a nice thing to do, to kind of celebrate what we did over the winter and into the spring.
How amazing.
And nobody, as far as I know, nobody objected to having this.
Nobody was offended.
I hope not, anyway.
I love that. I love that you captured the people doing these joyful things and were able to share that through email and then through a calendar. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I think also because I wasn't trying to go for a specific likeness. I think that helps.
Yes, absolutely.
To just yes.
That takes the fear out. I'm going to practice. Yeah. You're inspiring me.
I think it's easier to draw people you don't know well than to try and draw close family.
I would say that's true.
Yes.
You seem to be drawn to insects and invertebrates. Is this a particular interest that you've had for a long time, or are they just the thing that grab you when you're looking for something outdoors?
The insects and invertebrates came from the MA that I was doing. I didn't have a particular interest before then, but it has stayed with me, and I like to think that it's something that I will continue to pursue. But I don't think it's going to be the main focus for my artwork. I had thought that I might develop it into a website, which I started doing, but then I realised that it was such a massive project. It's gone on the back burner for now, and but I think it's I just seem to capture one particular subject for a while and then move on to something else and then come back to it. It's difficult to say really what grabs your attention.
Absolutely. Some people have a real focus on birds or a real focus on plants or something, but others have a more a broader range, and it seems that you have just a love to sketch whatever's happening, whatever's passing through your day.
Yes, yeah. Flowers particularly. Static things are a lot easier.
Yes, I agree.
I've avoided birds for a long time.
Yeah.
Particularly, I mean, some people are so gifted at drawing birds.
But rarely do people who draw birds draw them on the wing or on a branch. They draw them mostly from a photo, I would say.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. And I do the same, yes.
I'd love to hear more about your studies and your project and the book that you created at the end.
Yes, well, I was really lucky when I was doing my project that a friend had written a story that I then illustrated.
Wow.
And at the end of it, we had a book that we had printed but not published. So I think we did 10 copies. It was called Bin Mouse.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the story of Bin Mouse.
And it was a story based on something that had happened to my friend when a mouse had come into the house and got shut in the bin, and the cat knew it was there. And eventually the mouse escapes. And
wow.
the cat makes friends with the mouse. So so we incorporated quite a lot of little creatures, insects, nature-based illustrations into that. So that was a really nice project to sort of tie in with the nature journaling that I've been doing.
Yes.
And that's led on to being invited to do something for a nursery, a local nursery. It's a nursery based on a farm. And it's not actually a forest school, but they do a lot of outdoor activities with the children. And Vic, who's doing the words and I'm doing the pictures, we produced a book at the end of, it was September it came out. And the nursery put up the funding to have some copy. I think we had 800 copies made, which is quite a lot. And she wants us to do 2 more. So that's going to keep me busy for a while.
Yeah. So again, with a nature theme for each one.
Sort of. The one we've got to do next is about the graduation of the nursery children when they leave and they move on to big school. So there's less scope for nature things, but I'm going to sort of include some little cameos and things in there. Yes. But so, it's been a very good discipline to sort of get me so that I start and finish a project, which is what I've been very bad at. Start one thing and then leave it.
Yes, I do the same thing. And tell me about the process of illustrating the book. Did you storyboard the whole thing? Did you do thumbnails to test ideas, or did you just jump in and do each illustration?
The first time round, I did a storyboard, but I didn't. It's been quite a steep learning curve, and now on the sort of the third one, I'm hoping that I've ironed out some of the mistakes that I made first time round, like not leaving enough room for the writing.
Yes.
Doing, so focused on the picture that there wasn't enough room to fit the text in. And a lot of it, getting the edges right to fit the bleed of the printing, and lots of kind of tiresome technical stuff that rather not have to worry about. And improving my drawings, really, because you always look back and you think, I could have done that better. And trying to improve the quality of your work.
And that comes from doing, I think. Sometimes people say certain people have a talent for art or whatever it is, but of course I think these things just, as you do them, your skill level grows.
Yes, definitely. I mean, people come to me and say, I can't draw. And you think, well, yes, keep trying.
You need to do it, yeah.
Yes, you need to do it.
Exactly. You mentioned that you had a project to finish at the end of your design course, an end product that you were working towards, and that your nature journaling informed this end product. But let's touch on that idea. I think that people get really hung up on making an end product, and that's different, isn't it, from journaling? And it's wonderful that your nature journaling informed your study. That sounded really like a wonderful loop. But then there's this idea that sometimes we hook into, that is, we have to make a perfect page, we have to make a perfect end product or some sort of art piece, and it changes the way we journal. I'm interested in your thoughts on that, making something as opposed to journaling for journaling's sake.
Yes, it is. It's a completely different mindset, really. And when I'm sort of busy having to finish a project, like at the moment, I'm not really going to get much time for the journaling.
Yes.
And I miss it.
Yeah.
And yeah, or the temptation is to put off the things that you have to do and just do the fun journaling
fun
bit.
Yeah.
Yes, where it's just so nice to be able to not worry about the end product and the outcome. Yes. And I think this is where the nature journaling, coming back to the idea of mindfulness and the sort of meditative value of it. Yes, I think if you think you've got to journal every day, then yes, it might get a bit stressful. But if it's just there as something that you do when you feel like it, and when you're in the right humour, and just a kind of switching off from some of the worries of the day, then that's where its value comes.
That's the magic place. Yeah, that's where the solace and the joy comes in. When we start to overanalyze and think about a product, think about a journal page as something perfect, or a product to be created, or something to be shown even. That's when the joy is diminished, I would say. And I hope that we can all keep it as this special place just for us to play and to find joy and curiosity and wonder, and let it be that. There's time and place for making it an end product, isn't there? Especially if you're working on something like you are. But the journal is such a special, joyful place. It should be free and messy and fun and silly and have cartoons.
Yes.
I'm coaching myself, if you can't hear it. If you can.
Yes, it is.
It's the joy.
And especially when you start sharing things online, like in Instagram and so on. And there's always that dilemma of, do I post this? Do I share it? Is it somehow diminishing what I do by kind of striving towards something that you're going to share? I think it's very personal.
Yes.
And I think if it keeps you motivated, then share.
Yes,
because it's just such a nice atmosphere on most of the sort of Instagram contacts that I've had. I hardly ever get anything negative.
Yes. Yes, I found the same. It's a very, very supportive and loving and friendly place to share nature journal pages, I would say.
Yes, I found that the case. Yes. But I can quite understand that even though somebody might be doing something quite sort of worth sharing, they might not want to, because it's very personal, isn't it?
Yes. Oftentimes I'll write, especially if I'm writing a lot of things in my journal, I hesitate to share those pages because it's your own thoughts, it's your own feelings, it's your own experiences. It's a conundrum.
Yes, yeah. No rules.
Yeah, no rules, exactly. And so you've been teaching nature journaling in different to different community groups, and I'd love to hear of your teaching experiences and how it's been received in your community.
Yes. I've only done 4 sessions.
Yeah.
And 2 of those sessions were with an art group. So the emphasis was very much on producing a good drawing. And then the others were more sort of sharing the concept of nature journaling.
Yes.
And it's been interesting to see how even though people that do draw regularly, it was quite a new concept to them for some people. And I think they did go away, and a few people have sort of maybe taken it up, because I did a repeat session and found that that people were sort of had taken on board the ideas, and were beginning to sort of put them into their work. So that was nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But I'm not a confident person when it comes to doing I had to do a demonstration. And I'm afraid nerves took over, and all the lines
Kathryn.
go wobbly, and
I know exactly how you feel. I feel the same way in live sessions. If I'm asked to draw, I freeze. It's not something I feel confident doing either.
Oh, it's interesting. Yes.
Is this something you'd like to expand and grow and do more of, the teaching in your community?
I thought that I was going to do more of that, but I think perhaps I find it a bit stressful.
Yes.
So I don't think I want to do a lot of it.
Yes.
Maybe the odd session. And I've thought that probably what I would enjoy more is setting up a little group, an informal group.
Yes.
Where people, I don't want to be kind of the expert.
Yes.
Which would be much more up my street, to have a more of a sort of democratic sharing kind of approach.
Yes, and create a community.
Yes, and then that way keep the enjoyment, because as soon as it starts to get stressful, you're not enjoying it anymore, and you kind of make a rod for your own back in a sense.
100%. Yes.
yes, and I'm lucky in that I don't have to rely on it for an income.
Yes.
It would be different if I was sort of having to make my living from it. I'd be very poor.
So you recently participated in a 30-day sketchbook challenge, and I always talk to people about challenges because I'm fascinated by people who can do this. But I'm interested in what you learned or change that you noticed in your practice through the challenge. How was it for you? What did you see and notice and experience?
I really enjoyed it because it sort of played to my sort of butterfly mind of trying lots of different things out and doing them quickly.
Yes.
So yeah, I enjoyed it, and it let me experiment a little bit more and explore the more sort of illustration side of things. But it did mean that I think I only did about 2 nature journal pages in that time, because there was this pressure to do the challenge.
Yes.
And it didn't necessarily fit in with
was there
journaling.
Was there prompts each day, or were you just asked to do something on a page each day?
There was a prompt. And sometimes you had to really sort of think outside the box to do something that fitted in, that was kind of meaningful. But I did enjoy it. I think it was worth doing.
Yes.
But it was, I would say, if I had another project on the go, then it would just be too distracting.
Yes.
It's sort of more suited to if you're not sure what you want to do.
Yes, finding inspiration. Yes,
very much so.
I periodically tell myself I'm going to do the 100 Days Project, or I'm going to do Inktober, or whatever the next thing is. And then I remind myself that I've started these things again and again, and I never get past, day 3 or something like that. I just can't do challenges, but I'm fascinated by people who do, and what comes out of it, what they create, and just that discipline of doing it every day for a period of time.
Yes. I mean, that was the first one I'd done, and I'm glad I did it.
Yes.
Yeah. But there's a 100-day challenge coming.
Yes.
I think it starts either yesterday or today.
Yes.
And I thought, no, don't go down there, that route.
I coach myself out of these things all the time. It has been such a joy to talk to you. You've inspired me to do two things. Add more people into my nature journal pages. I'm going to practice that. And to create a drawn walk. I have a lovely walk that I do regularly around here. And I love your idea of the drawn walk. It's just such a beautiful idea to have the map and then to have some elements of things that you've seen, and I'm going to try that. So thank you for the inspiration and thank you for this joyful conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Kathryn. As I said at the end, I really got a lot of inspiration from this chat. The idea of the drawn walk and using more illustrated maps in my journal and starting to add people to my pages. I wonder if this is something you're comfortable with or whether it's a challenge for you too. And I'm thinking that this could be a good topic for our next prompt episode, stretching ourselves to do things that feels like a challenge. To see Kathryn's journal pages, please follow the links in the show notes to her website and Instagram page. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.